I think we need.
Hey!
We are CleverPace. I'm Barb.
And I'm Tara.
And we're so excited that you're here today with us for our Lunch and Learn. And we have a special guest that we're excited to introduce in a little bit. He's on here as well. You probably already see his face on the screen. We've got Pearson with us.
Yep.
But first we wanted to tell those of you who don't know a little bit about CleverPace and who we train.
Yep. So we train women. They're busy, we're stressed, we have, a lot of different schedules to put together and different demands on us that maybe people without children don't have. And so some of them are working mothers, some of them are stay at home, all the way up to even grandparents, grandma. So that brings up a lot of different questions about dieting and weight loss that maybe other people in the more general population may not experience. And that's why we're so excited. Every week we do a Q&A night and we answer questions in our free group. And we're so excited to talk to our guest tonight because he has a lot of insight and experience on those different questions that we have. So we'll introduce Alex. This is Alex Pearson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I think that is definitely the nicest introduction I've ever gotten anywhere. Do you guys want me to do a little bit of a kind of an introduction to what I've done in the past so everyone has a little bit of context for who I am instead of just this random guy to listen to?
That would be great. Let us know a little bit about your expertise and experience, who you train. I know you have a lot of experience both in schooling and also hands-on, so we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'm based, as I'm sure you can all tell from my accent, in the UK. I run a both in-person and online coaching business where I typically work with people who want to go on really, really large weight loss journeys. Most of the time, my clients come to me wanting to lose plus 6 stone, 6, 10, 12-ish stone. And I've made a career, I guess, out of studying both the physiology and the psychology of what it takes to go on large weight loss journeys. Over the last couple of years, I've extended that study to help other personal trainers all over the world through my work with Lift the Bar Education, which is a big community of personal trainers all over the world, which obviously you guys are a part of. And yeah, that is where I aim to kind of pass on some of my education and my personal research on the topics of obesity and weight loss to personal trainers all over the world, because it's something I'm incredibly passionate about. And I think it's something that actually we don't help people well enough on, to be honest. And yeah, that's why it's kind of so important to me. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. That's kind of what I do.
Excellent. So can I ask really quick, maybe tangent from that, what got you interested in that? Like why obesity?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's funny, lots of people ask that one. Like I had a brand new client the other day who asked me exactly that question. And I'll be honest, for me, fitness and nutrition, it's never felt very important to me personally to help people get slightly more defined abdominals. Like, if that's what people do and that's what gets people excited, that's super cool. We should all do us. But for me, that never kind of really did it. And I got to when I career changed into this one, I stopped and considered how I could make this new career be important, personally important for me. And a real personally important thing for me is experiencing life to the full for as long as we can. I remember turning 18 and suddenly realizing that I was going to die. Not soon, but being really, really acutely aware that, like, yeah, someday, like, I was gonna be over, I was gonna be done. And that really hit me like a fucking freight train. And so when I started this new career, I wanted to take that fundamental fear in me, I'll be honest, and look for people who really realistically could be losing out either on quality of life or length of life. Because that is the reality with more extreme obesity, which is the area that I work in. Typically, we see the data shows that people will lose a minimum of 15 years of life off their normal life expectancy. And not only that, but people lose quality of life too. The ability to go out and experience the joys and the wonders of the world. And so, yeah, that was the thing for me, that I wanted it to be powerfully meaningful. And yeah, that's where it led me, I guess.
I think that's really, really key, because that's what we go for too, is quality of life, of not sustainable on the way, and it's not sustainable when you get there, then why are you wasting time on it? There's a lot more to life than just this.
Get into some questions. We have lots of questions that we've gathered from clients and friends and interested parties here, and we'd love to rack your brain and hear from you about your thoughts and feelings and strategies and ideas that we can share with those watching. So can we get right into it?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm super excited. I have no idea what's coming. This is going to be great.
So do you want to start with the emotional stuff, or the macro math stuff, or the hormone lifestyle stuff?
Oh, wow. There's a choice. Let's do the macro number math stuff first, because more often than not, the macro number math stuff doesn't matter that much. Because that, I think, most of the time actually leads into all those other areas anyways.
Hey, I was hoping you'd say that. Okay, so where was the one? Okay, so one of the questions we got was a woman who was just exploring tracking your food and MyFitnessPal and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asking, what do the macro splits actually mean? So in MyFitnessPal, you can like do percentages. So she's like, what is a carb and what is a protein? And why are they asking about that when there's calories? So am I watching calories or am I watching macros? So what do they mean? Why are the calories split up, or why are the macros split up that way? And then what does it mean when one's higher or lower, or should one be higher or lower? How do you set that up? So
that's a really cool question and a really great starting point, and it's a massive topic. But before I dig into that, I mean, I don't know if we've got context on this question, because that context in terms of what this lady is trying to achieve is most important. So am I kind of going down a fat loss route here, I'm guessing? Yeah? Cool. Right, so where to start with this? So fundamentally, when we are talking about fat loss, calories are always going to be king, okay? So if we take somebody on 1,000 calories a day, whether those 1,000 calories are made up of all carbohydrates, all proteins, or all fats, the same fat loss will happen if somebody is actually on 1,000 calories a day. Now, where macros become more relevant is that for an individual, they will probably dictate how easy an individual finds it to stick to the given calories. So, for example, if we just had 1,000 calories worth of carbohydrates, let's say, and yes, depending on what types of carbohydrates they are, we would all probably find it much, much tougher to stick to those 1,000 calories and get the fat loss than if we had a balance of all three of those macronutrients. And that is where it leads us onto the topic of, essentially onto the topic of satiety, which is the most important thing to try to manipulate when it comes to weight loss. Ultimately, with weight loss, the game we are playing is appetite management. And we all are born with a different appetite. That's the genetic dice. And the game we're playing is appetite management. And for most people, a higher percentage of protein with the same number of calories will, for the most part, for most people, equal more physical satiety. I'm not talking about kind of more emotional satiety, I guess, there, or psychological kind of hunger. But from a physiological standpoint, if we take 500 calories of protein or 500 calories of fat or 500 calories of carbohydrates, the 500 calories of protein will typically kill our appetite for longer and more consistently. So I guess the second part of that question is, does it matter? And what should they or shouldn't they be? So simple way to do this is calories are king, protein is most important next to manage appetite. So for most people, hit calories and hit some kind of protein frequency or total target. And that can be split down into two ways. So you can have a, let's say, 150 grams of protein target to hit for the day. Most of the time that is set by somebody's body weight. A great range is we take our body weight in kilos, and being somewhere in the 1.2 to 2 grams per day of protein will do for most people. Yeah, somewhere in that range. So let's say we have 150 grams of protein across a day for, let's say that's what, maybe a 70 odd kilo individual. I've just done that because that's me, totally cheating there. Yeah, somewhere in that range. Then the protein frequency, how that's spread across the day, might also help manage appetite across the day as well. So instead of having, I don't know, 30 grams of protein in the morning and then 100 grams of protein in the evening, it might be better for appetite management to split that into 25 gram, 30 gram-ish bursts across the day. That's if you want to get super, super detailed. After you've done that, where the rest of your calories go between carbohydrates and fats does not matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. That is down to preference. That is down to what you enjoy and what helps you feel like pleasure and good, essentially.
You're minding the calorie total.
Yeah, totally. So it's basically, so let's say our calorie total is, let's say we've got 1,500 calories to play with. You set protein. So let's say that is at 1.5 grams per kilo. So right in the middle of that range. You take that amount of protein in calories. We can work out the maths on this. I can't do this in my head. And then, yeah, the rest of your calories after protein, divide them up however you want. It makes no difference. But generally, for the most part, for most people, not driving fat to a non-existent levels is going to be important. Particularly for women, because a decent daily fat intake does help us regulate our natural hormone levels. That's the irony with fat. Fat is actually essential, and the funny thing about carbohydrates is they're not actually essential for life. We can get by as a human without carbohydrates. Can't do that without fat. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everybody like drive your carbs through the floor, because a lot of the time carbs are great too.
I think everybody does is they think, oh, it's not essential, so that's why keto. And it's like, no.
No, absolutely.
Life sustaining. Yeah.
Absolutely. But to be honest, for most people, the biggest thing to do is to separate those up in regards to our preference. Because most of the time, for most people, I think in our Western diet, we are not going to end up with ridiculously low fat levels unless you set out that way and it's like, right, I'm going to go 0 fat, and it's like reduced fat meat and 0 fat yogurt and 0 fat cheese and no cooking oil and bacon, terrible, and all these things. We're not going to end up like 0 fat. Obviously some people can, but for the most part we're not going to. So really, for me, the biggest thing that will help consistency to hitting that calorie target is actual flexibility and preference after you've set protein and you're consistently hitting protein to meet physiological appetite.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that answer. I love hearing how you mentioned how a lot of it does come down to preference and to our own personal satiety or satiety, how we're all going to be different that way. I know for a lot of women, or a lot of people in general, we tend to compare ourselves to other people. Specifically, we had some questions coming in about how women feel a little jaded in a way when they see other men doing a diet or doing things exactly like they are, but men are just losing the weight and things are just easy for them, where for a woman it might yo-yo up and down and there's changes throughout the month. And I know you train men and women, correct?
Yeah.
So I'd like for you, if you can, to speak on kind of how a woman's cycle and how that works for a woman, both with hormones and how they experience weight loss and even satiety or satiety different male than their male counterparts that they're comparing themselves to.
Yeah, oh God, that's a brilliant question. And it's an absolutely massive topic. And whenever I talk about that comparison between men and women and trying to lose body fat, I think it's really important actually to start with the real reality of that. And the real reality of that is it's just not fair. Like that's no two ways about it. Like it is much, much harder for women to lose body fat than it is for men to lose body fat. And to say anything else is just not representative. And that comes back down to the fact that men and women are fundamentally different. And it is a lot more important for women's bodies to carry higher levels of body fat. That is why men can get down to absolutely lower levels. If we look at the most lean people on the planet, we look at the male and female physique competitors, generally men can get down to kind of single-digit body fat levels at their leanest. Women will kind of scrape into that 10 to 12%-ish range. It's just not, we are just fundamentally different. And like you say, that is before we consider the real impact of the menstrual cycle that does have play a very, very significant role in our in our appetite. I mentioned before that the game we are playing with fat loss is managing appetite. And for an individual, for a lady, knowing how her menstrual cycle affects her appetite is going to be key. Because, and I know it's kind of almost a duh moment, but it is so unique and it is so individual. I've had female clients who it's just like, they're pretty, their appetite basically doesn't change. And I've had people who have enormous swings in appetite throughout their cycle. And that can be, that can be due to a whole million different hormone fluctuations that I could go into. But to be honest, there's no point. There's no point in me talking about and us talking about that because we can't change them. Unless you change like birth control medication, which is a conversation to have with a doctor, not with me, then we can't change those hormone levels. So forget about them. Let's focus on the behaviors that we can affect. Go on.
I'm glad that is that is. Are you gonna do that?
I'm hearing
Okay.
it.
What's that?
It seems to be like a thing that some people will do is like, oh, my hormones are this way, therefore I cannot lose weight. Like it's my hormones' fault. It's just not in the cards for me. No. There's behaviors and habits that you can do. So what are some of those that you've seen work? So say a woman cycle, she does notice that she is, retaining water and she is craving certain things on a repetitive cyclical pattern. What do you do? What are some strategies that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, yeah, on the note of like, oh, it's my hormones, that means I can't lose weight. There is no hormone profile that will stop weight loss. Objectively, from a physiological and biological standpoint, there is no hormone profile that stops somebody's weight loss unless you have a specific medical condition to talk about with your doctor, not with me. So, for example, if somebody is hypothyroid, then you go to your doctor and you get thyroid correcting medication, and your thyroid goes back up, and it's easier to lose weight. That's a great example of that. And that needs to be medically corrected. So aside from specific cases like that, some of the behaviors, the habits, the strategies that can help across a menstrual cycle is one, is starting with real self-awareness over how you react to different times in your cycle as an individual. And then knowing what is the driver for you as an individual that causes you to overeat. So, for example, is that getting a given craving at a certain point in your cycle, which is, as we know, very, very normal for a lot of women. And a lot of the time that is typically luteal phase, a lot of the time, which from a physiological standpoint, we see a little peak in basal metabolic rate. So the amount of calories per day goes up in mid-luteal, and that's typically when we get kind of PMS type symptoms. And that might be the kind of the the physical driver of kind of wanting to eat a little bit more. Equally, the driver might be, I feel really rubbish. I've got a really bad head. I'm really cramping, and like my, really abdominal cramping, uterus cramping, all these kinds of things. I've got no energy. And that might be a driver of, actually, I want to eat a bit more. So knowing as an individual how you respond during that time is key, because let's say if somebody tries to continue down a very rigid, restrictive diet through that period, that actually for the rest of the month might be totally fine, and you might be really able to hit like your lower calorie goals, or just fast for periods of the day, or whatever it is that you're doing. But then you try to maintain that through this period where you've got more kind of more physical symptoms that might drive a little bit more comfort eating, or all these kinds of things. And actually it's the rigidity of the rest of your month and trying to stick to that that actually then makes you go, oh, you know what, fuck this, I can't do this at all, versus knowing that that's how you respond, and self-awareness over your own thought processes, so that next time, next month, you're reaching that point and it's like, well, actually, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of slack. I'm going to go to maintenance for these few days. Deliberately at maintenance, I'm going to allow myself a little bit more flexibility around food choice, and then I'm going to get my dieting done in the other 3 weeks of the month where I feel a little bit better. I aim to just get through this period in a calm way without trying to kind of go down a trying to continue what you're doing. If it's a struggle for somebody at that time, I think that's the most common one that I see anyways. Because I know lots of the clients I've had, they're wonderful. And it's like, you know what, I can still do all the things. It doesn't matter. You know what, I'm a strong, independent woman and I can do whatever I damn well please. And it's, yeah, that is super true. And that is fucking awesome. However, there does come a point of like that little bit of self-awareness to just kind of go, yeah, I need to take a step back and actually treat yourself with a little bit of kindness. Because that period is grim. And I have no idea how that feels, but I've had enough clients who describe how it is to know that for some women, it can be really, really, really tough. And yeah, during those periods, not being tougher on yourself can be important. And actually, yeah, how we define that toughness or that almost self-punishment, actually, for some people, where it's like, you know what, I don't feel great, therefore, oh, fuck all of this, and I'm just going to eat myself into a coma because I don't feel great and I can't do the exercise that I love and I'm not motivated to cook. So it's almost like the flip side of that is a little bit of a self-punishment-y cycle too. So I guess that's two separate ways to think about that.
Yeah, so you are suggesting then that the diet portion is controllable by how we think as well about food.
Totally. I think that's the most important thing. Whenever we talk about physiology, is that physiology gives us our starting point, right? And a lot of the time, physiology drives those initial, sometimes those initial urges, those initial thoughts that pop into our head, like eat the donut or whatever it is that drives those initial urges. But we need to develop the skills to separate ourselves from those automatic thoughts, those automatic feelings, and to separate those thoughts from our behaviors. And that's a complicated skill to develop, but it is one that we can develop.
Excellent. That's part of what we focus on, and I know a lot of women are wondering about, is that food relationship that we tend to have, and the thoughts that we have with it. So I know a lot of times when people go on a weight loss journey, if it has to do with something deeply personal, like maybe revenge or rediscovering their self through weight loss or things like that, that's very deeply personal. There's kind of a laser focused part of the drive that helps them be successful. Sometimes, however, we have people that, you know, it's their goal to lose weight. There's not that deeply personal aspect of it, but it seems a little more negotiable when it's kind of a loose goal and harder to attain. So I'm wondering if you could speak on why that is, and if there's or how that connection works between those thoughts that we have and how personal they are, and how that translates to our cravings and our behaviors.
God, wow, this is a great one. Oh God, I love these questions. Right, so I think, yeah, so for some people, they start their weight loss journey and they are, like you say, they are super clear. They know that, right, this is, you know, this is about this, I'm trying to achieve this, I want to go on this massive weight loss journey so I can go walking in the countryside, so I can play with my grandkids, so I can, yeah, like, you know what, I want to show that person, that ex-partner, let's say. And you know what, that's all cool. Like, there is no illegitimate form of motivation. Whatever gets you started, like high fives on starting, that's brilliant. Yeah, some people have that really, really clearly, and that's great. However, like you said, there are a whole other bunch of people who we almost feel like there's an unclear should. I should lose weight. Like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be a bit skinnier. I should look a different way. And whenever people, I always say to people, notice when you use the word should, because that indicates that that it's not exactly your choice yet, right? You haven't made the decision that actually I choose to do this because it's important to me. It's like, I always think about it, it's like when we're all at school, oh, I should really do my homework. You don't really want to do your homework, do you? You want to go outside and spin in a circle or whatever. play the.
That's a good way to put. Gonna say that again. Do you
Yeah.
remember what it was? Say it again. Of it's not really my choice yet.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Totally. It's absolutely enormous. And like, if anybody's interested in like the posh term for this, that is called introjected motivation, right? And that isn't bad, right? Like I said earlier, if that gets somebody started going like, I should really do this, or you know what, I want to do this because otherwise I'm scared that I'll get diabetes or have a heart attack or whatever it is. If that gets you going, that is awesome. However, that type of motivation, those shoulds, makes it harder in the long term to keep the behaviors going, because we haven't yet figured out why it is personally important to us, and exploring why we feel we should do something versus why we want to, or why it's important to us, or why it's not important to us. I've had clients come to me before and be like, yeah, so I want to lose weight and do all these things and blah, blah, blah. And actually, throughout my time, I'm thinking of one client in particular here, throughout my time with her, we actually discovered that she didn't want weight loss, and that actually she wanted to have a little bit more control over her eating, and that was fine, totally regardless of what the scale says. But actually, she realized that she was great just the way she was. And she felt happier with her body by changing the way she ate, but not the scale. And that's not a failure in her regard. She just got actually really clear on what was important to her. And what was important to her was regular exercise and just feeling a little bit more balanced around the way she ate. But the scale never changed. And that was great, because actually the things for her at that point that she would have had to do to cause significant weight loss and maintain them didn't fit for her in her life, and it wasn't worth it. And so she got clearer on that. And I think one of the difficulties with our society as a whole in the Western world is the contrast between these two things. Our entire environment drives us towards weight gain. The ridiculous amount of obscenely calorific and highly palatable foods that surround us all, and how easy they are to access, it's caused the obesity crisis, the obesity epidemic, and our weights to climb over time. But that is contrasted with this massive moralizing over our body fat levels, leading so many people to be stuck in that middle ground between like, oh God, I feel like I should be doing something because actually the entire world views me as morally wrong or stupid or disgusting for carrying an extra couple of stone. And actually, really, that extra couple of stone won't make a huge difference to somebody's health. Yes, as somebody's weight climbs and get into obese and a much, much higher weight, yes, it does. But in that middle ground, it makes very little difference. So it's about figuring out for everybody, whether they are very obese or in that middle ground, what's the most important thing? How does that relate to the things that we hold most important? What do we value in life? And how does that relate to getting the scale lower? Because it's not getting the scale lower that's the thing. It's never the thing. It's what that leads us to. And so often people go on that journey and don't know what it's leading to. It's just like, I want to be 3 stone lighter. And then they get to 3 stone lighter, and then their lives are just the same.
Yes.
It's like, well, what was the fucking point in this? I'm just miserable now because I can't eat donuts. And they put way back on. Whereas actually getting clarity on what you are fundamentally trying to achieve with that weight loss is really important. So let's say a really touchy one that I know I've had female clients talk to me an awful lot about is like, I want to lose weight so I can feel more comfortable being sexually intimate with my partner, right? and which is a super personal one. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's the goal here. Brilliant, right? So let's say they lose 3 stone, but they still don't feel comfortable enough to be sexually intimate with their partner. What's the point? What's the point in losing that weight? And the irony is that the behaviors that we want to achieve and weight loss are often 2 very separate things, because there are people at all body shapes and all body sizes, taking that example, that don't feel body confident to be sexually intimate with somebody. And it's addressing both of those things at the same time that's the key. Yes, lose the weight, but also address the thing you're actually trying to do. It doesn't have to be as a personal example as that. It might just be the confidence to, I don't know, go and walk, let's say. Or the classic is feeling happy. Like, I want to lose weight and feel happy. Unfortunate news flash, weight loss doesn't equal happiness. Otherwise, the thinnest people in the world will be fucking over the moon all the time and delighted. But that's not the way it works. Ultimately, if you want to be happy as we lose weight, we have to pursue what I always call a value-based life, where we go, what is most important to me? And I want to live my life according to what is important to me and do things that are powerfully meaningful.
Now, see what you're bringing up right there. I'm thinking of several people that we know that that seems to be something that happens to women. I'm not saying it's a magic number, but there's something about 40, and we've got a comment relating to it about that. But it's about turning 40. It's like something different happens in your mind where you're looking at your life different. You're looking at your body different, but you're still feeling the same pull of what you had at your 20s and 30s. But as you go on, and then menopause starts and other things change, and it's almost like you're having to be a teenager again, where you're like, what is my body doing? It doesn't know half the time. It doesn't even know. And I'm just dealing with it. I'm here. Like, it's not cyclical anymore. It's like whatever's going to happen today. And then you're having that different value-based thinking because you are older. And like, I think what you started the interview with is like looking at life different, where you're starting to realize what really does matter. We're having women that are over 40 and they're feeling those tugs of like, I would like to have a body that I can enjoy and appreciate, but there's that gap between, okay, partly I don't know what my body's doing right now, and the other part is I'm not sure I'm willing to do what it takes to do that, but I still want it. So it's like all these things. I feel like maybe I voiced it wrong, but I feel like that's an older, because you did it too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's kind of, everyone says every decade it gets harder and things change, and I think it even creates this fear in a lot of women as we're getting older, as our kids are starting to get older, we're maybe past the childbearing ages, and we start to have that fear because we've heard over and over again it gets harder and harder, and I think sometimes that's a barrier too.
Yeah, so it's like there's so many things pulling at women over 40. So I hate to pitch it to you like so open-ended like that, but if you can maybe talk about because I think it's really important for women to sit down with themselves and understand, I'm looking at life different, so can't I have enough room to look at my body a little bit different without feeling like I'm just lowering my standards because I got dealt this card?
Yeah, God. Yeah, that's God, there's so many ways to go with that. I think first, just to get it out of the way, almost, I want to hit on a little bit of the physiology that changes around menopause, because again, it's something we can't change. Gonna have to deal with it. Gonna have to accept it. But probably a lot of the times you hear women say, "Oh, you know, around menopause, I just put loads of weight on," and more often than not, that is actually due to the fact that we don't suddenly store more body fat at a post-menopausal, but where women store the body fat they accumulate can change. And so typically post-menopause, women will start to store more body fat around the stomach. And that's why, because obviously we all constantly look down at our stomachs all day long. And suddenly if we start to see more happening there, we go, oh, I am putting weight on. Whereas actually it's just changing the storage location. And again, nothing we can do about that. It's just sometimes it's, I guess, a little bit, answers that question a little bit actually about like what is happening, like what is happening with me right now and my body, and it's all changing and all these kinds of things. And that's yeah, sometimes knowing that can help. So in terms of more of the kind of the broader issue around, you know, almost that time in women's lives where it's like, what direction am I going in? You know, for maybe for, you know, you mentioned earlier that a lot of your clients are mums, and it's like, you know, maybe 40s, the kids have grown up, they've like moved out, they've gone to uni, all those types of things. And it's almost like, wow, like the context of my entire life is changed. And then suddenly they're the people who are, it's like everybody's gone and now we're just left with ourselves a little bit. I know that's kind of how clients have described it to me in the past. And so that is a wonderful opportunity, like you said, to sit down and explore what the context for the rest of somebody's life and how they're, ultimately the way we look and the way we feel about our bodies, how that fits in. And I think probably the big one that I want to hit on here is so often we try to manipulate our body fat levels to change our thoughts and to change our feelings. That's what a lot of us do. Like I hit on before, like I want to lose weight so I'm happy. It doesn't work like that. And if we are continually forever trying to lose body fat or gain muscle or whatever it is to change our thoughts and our feelings, that can perpetuate a really lifelong struggle, actually, and a real like lifelong unhappiness. If there's only a certain window of our weight or a certain window like that our body looks like where we feel happy, because what if you break your leg? What if you know, maybe you've got an elderly parent who needs lots of looking after and you can't quite dedicate as much time to exercise anymore, or you can't quite cook all your meals from scratch, or all of these wonderful things. What happens then? How do you feel about your body then? If we can't manipulate our body to fix our feelings and our thoughts anymore, right? So what I always say there is, by all means, try to change your body. And that's brilliant, like becoming healthier and exercising and eating well and losing body fat, brilliant, right? But I also always say, while you're doing that, change your relationship with your body at the same time. Because I think we can be in two extreme camps here. We can be in the camp of going, no, just diet away your feelings. I feel really unhappy about myself. I'm just going to try and diet those feelings away, which doesn't work in the long run. It just doesn't work. Whether that is because at some point our body changes, like is natural, like menopause, or because something happens, an event happens that we've got to deal with. Or we can be all the way down the other end of the scale, just going, no, just accept your body no matter what size you are, and that's great. Like, and that, I don't think that's cool either. Like, for a lot of people, I don't think that sits entirely right. For some people it is, and that's great. But for a lot of other people, it's like, well, you know what? Why can't I lose a little bit of weight to kind of change how I feel? Whereas actually, I think doing both very consciously at the same time is key. I've had clients lose 6 stone or 4 stone and still, you know, struggle to look in the mirror. So make that changing your relationship with your body a really fucking conscious, powerful part of your weight loss journey from day one. That's what I often say to all my clients. Like I had a client who was like, she came to me and it was like, she's like, I haven't looked in a mirror in like 25 years. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And she was like, you know, maybe after I've lost weight, then I'll be able to do it. And I was like, hey, so you know what we're going to do? And it's from day one, we practiced over a period of time, like, hey, gonna look in the mirror today. What thoughts, what feelings came up? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you are losing weight. But you're still changing your relationship with that. We don't put things off until we lost weight. So yeah. Sorry, I went off on a massive tangent there.
No, I think it's really helpful, and I think this is going to resonate. I hope it resonates with women, because there's a lot of stuff we tell ourselves about our body for whatever reasons, and that's another rabbit hole. But
yeah.
I think going back to putting this into the context of weight loss, we're talking about body relationship, and we're talking about the thoughts that we have about food and why that's important. And I want to bring it home and make it super clear. Why are we talking about this in relationship to eating? Like, make that super clear. Why are we talking to somebody like you about body relationship and the dieting, weight loss, and the wanting to, you know, look a certain way and feel a certain way, and my feelings about this and all of that? Why is that important for how we're eating?
Yeah, nailed it. Because ultimately, our relationship with food for a lot of people, and unfortunately, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I might be wrong on this, and say that it's more common for women, is that our relationship with our body is so closely tied up with how we think and feel about food. And if we have a very emotionally turbulent, let's say, relationship with our bodies, it's a lot, maybe a bit more likely that we will have an emotionally turbulent relationship with food as well. So imagine some kind of hypothetical, like there's always the one person out there who just kind of eats like a robot, who's just has no emotions around their body, no emotions around food, and it's just like, yeah, I just eat the same thing every single day for every single meal, and that's me, and just great. And it's like, oh, do you ever kind of feel a certain way about how you eat? No, just food, that's it, done. But that isn't most of us, and that's normal. So yeah, developing more emotional stability in our relationship with our body can, over time, help us, I think, develop more emotional stability in relationship to our food too. And I think a great example of this is the feeling so many of us get, both men and women, when, let's say, you have eaten something that you know is high calorie, or dare I use the word, bad, or dirty, or naughty, right? And let's say you've eaten a lot of it, okay? In the days or even the hours after eating that, lots of people say, I now feel fat.
Yes.
Their body has not changed, right? In that time, or even in the hours afterwards. So let's say I eat a massive pizza and a load of ice cream and a million chips or whatever, right? In the hours after that, we feel fat. That food hasn't finished digesting yet. It cannot have been converted to body fat. Yes, we might feel heavy because that stuff is now inside us, and we might be bloated, our stomach might have stretched to fit that quantity of food in, but emotionally, we feel fat. And feeling fat is different to having body fat. And I think for a lot of people, those two things can be really, really confused, and we almost can't feel the difference between feeling fat and having body fat, particularly after we have eaten in a way that we have decided is bad, or we've decided is wrong or naughty or bad. So feeling fat then changes our feelings, behaviors, and changes our subsequent behaviors around food, because it can lead to that, oh, I feel really fat now. Oh, you know what? I'm failing at this. I can't do this. Fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. So tomorrow, the same thing happens. It's like, right, more pizza, more ice cream, whatever it is, because I feel fat anyways, and I'm disgusting anyways. And I'm disgusting because I ate all of those things, because I feel fat. And you see, it's like that relationship with food and the relationship with our bodies is so meshed together that we can't find the strings. We can't find the individual parts of those. And actually, it's that perpetuates sometimes a continual cycle of either weight loss and weight regain, or just staying where you are. Those feelings and that mishmash of body, food, judgments, moral judgments, feeling fat, you know, or just the idea that being fat or feeling fat is wrong, or makes you somebody disgusting or immoral or lacking in willpower or lacking in control, or I don't know, all those kind of judgments that we place on ourselves. So that's why it's really important to change the relationship with our body and the relationship with food long term, for actually our long term success in dieting and weight loss and these kinds of things.
So to kind of recap,
Yeah.
we're going back to the beginning of, you have the calories and we know how that works, and you have the protein and the macros, but being able to adhere and actually see that through is going to be affected on how we think and go through this day by day, because we're just going to keep needing to eat. Like, the eating is going to keep happening.
So it's
Yeah.
the thinking that needs to change and be a part of all of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, more often than not, it is, for a lot of people, it is our relationship with food changing that allows us to adhere to calories and protein targets, right? And some people automatically just have that relationship with food for whatever reason, and that's a massive rabbit hole to go off down, why some people just have it. And a lot of the time, it's genetically based. Anyway, sorry, just got a reminder for something. Genetically based anyways. Whereas for lots of other people, because of either our genetic starting point or our just the experiences that we've had in our life and our history, our dieting history, the way we were brought up, we have to change our relationship to food so that actually we are able to hit those calories more consistently, that will cause weight loss. And a big part of that is finding a way to let go of the moral judgments that we attach to food, where it's clean or dirty or good or bad or all these different things, because that is the thing that so often stops people from adhering consistently to the fundamental principle of weight loss, which is calories in versus calories out, burn more and eat less. Yeah, that's the thing that drives it most of the time.
I don't know if you feel that, but we feel that as coaches whenever we hear and see people arguing about keto or clean eating or all that. And it's like, in the end, it's just another way to hate yourself different.
Exactly.
If you don't
so
have
many
that.
labels and the bad and good. And,
yeah, it's just a different way to hate yourself. Yeah.
we want to love ourselves. Yes. And I like how you speak to wanting to know what the motivations are and why, because really we're each individual and we're going to have different motivations and reasons for doing what we're doing.
And those are okay.
And it is okay. And I think it's finding that for ourselves and being happy in our body and our abilities.
And having it all congruent. So you can actually do this tomorrow and the next day and 5 years from now.
And enjoy that long life that we're hoping to have. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all those tools like clean eating, keto, whatever it is, I see the appeal of people cycling through different tools. Like one of the ones that I actually had, I had a conversation with my clients about recently was how many of my clients before they started with me at some point had tried weight loss hypnosis, right? Lots of them had, and they all explained basically to a T that the driver behind doing that was the fact that it is so appealing to think that just one day I can just do this thing and it all will all go away like that, right? And I so understand like how brilliant that would be if that was the case. Like one day you just go and lie down in a chair and somebody says some words to you and then you just wake up and you don't have these feelings about food anymore. You don't want donuts and your weight just falls off, right? That'd be unbelievable. So I get the appeal, but unfortunately, one of the most important things to going on a significant weight loss journey is coming to terms with the fact that that won't happen. And we can cycle through as many of those tools, even if it's the best tool in the world, right? Whatever that is, I have no idea what it is. But even the best tool, we can cycle through all of those tools, but to go on big weight loss journeys, we have to come to terms with the fact that there'll be hard work there. And I'm not saying that it'll be impossible or that it will be miserable, but there'll be hard work, and that we have to come to terms with that. And one of the biggest parts of coming to terms with that relates back to what I was saying before about knowing why it's important to us on a really, 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 really fundamental level. Because when we know why something is so fundamentally important to us, we are generally more willing to practice. We're more willing to kind of grit our teeth and swear a bit and stick in and undergo the journey of getting better.
Well, that's true in like other areas of life, so why wouldn't it be true with this?
Like, absolutely. And one of the metaphors I always use, and I think this will be really relevant, you know, you mentioned before that lots of people watching this will be mums. And I always say that if somebody has raised a child, they understand that process, right? I personally do not have children, thank God. But correct me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. When you have a child, is it scary? Yeah, scary. Is there a manual?
No, no, we wish it would be
scary. There's no manual, and you've got to figure it out as you go along. And there's lots of moments, the sleepless nights, the screaming matches, the arguments, the I don't know, the trying to get kids in a bath, all of the stuff, right? All of the stuff that's super hard to do. You've got to figure out along the way and practice. But why do you do that? Because you know how important it is. You know how fundamentally important it is. And because you've made the choice to do that. You've made the choice to do that. Because otherwise, it's like social services, time to give my child away. And that's what some people do. Like, that's fine for people who end up having a child and going, yeah, you know what, I choose not to do this. Whereas actually all the mums who do choose to do it, they choose to do it because it's really important to them. It's so fundamentally fucking important to them that it's worth all the sleepless nights, and it's worth the struggle and the swearing and all of the stuff that comes with raising a child. Because it's important, and we're able to practice because we know why it's so important. And that's the thing to do with weight loss or with any lifestyle change. Figure out how deeply fundamentally important it is. Because when you get that gives you the context for your decisions and your behaviors from that point. Because otherwise, it's all behaviors, it's all tools without context. It's keto without context. Why are we doing keto? Cause weight loss. Why is weight loss important? Don't know. Because I want to be happier. Why is being happier important? because I don't like being miserable. Okay, what does being miserable look like? Oh, well, I can't go out with my friends. Oh, why do you not go out with your friends? Oh, well, because I don't feel confident. I don't feel confident sitting in the group with them. They're all really thin and I'm not. Oh, okay. So actually this is about confidence to you. Why is confidence important to you? Well, actually, I feel like I'm not able to engage fully in the relationships I have with people because I'm not showing my true self. I don't feel my weight is a true representation of who I am on the inside. Oh, so this journey for you is about showing what your true self is like. Okay, so what does your true self do? What does that true self do? What does that inner self do? Well, actually, my inner self would just go and have fun with my friends. Brilliant. So while we're losing weight, from day one, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go and engage fully in those relationships with our friends, because that's what you said your inner self will do. And we're not going to put off doing that until we've lost weight, because most of the time it's too hard to do then, or it's harder to do then. Do it at the same time.
Alex, you hit on so many things. Like, we're looking at our questions and we're like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah, you're getting into them without us even asking many of them.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think especially the analogy of parenting, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of our clients. I think
it resonated with me. I love the analogy, and I also
the
practice piece, and I love how you just now you were asking those questions, and then you get an answer, ask another question, you get an answer, well, what does that mean? And I think that's really important for everyone to sit with and to start asking themselves those questions, to really get at the root of why it's important. And so thank you for kind of giving an example of that.
Yeah. We're probably gonna have to cut off here though, sadly.
No, I feel like we could talk all day and appreciate your time that you spent with us.
I feel like I've just rambled for an hour. I hope it's been useful.
No, it is, and we haven't even gotten into some of the ones that were like really, really tricky and heart-wrenching. Yeah. So there's more.
Like, to you guys, if you want to carry on for 10 minutes and I'll do some short, snappy answers to some questions, we can do that.
There was one here that I think you would appreciate.
Yeah.
How do you figure out your target calorie intake for fat and weight loss? I think that's a short.
Yeah, totally. Right, so how we figure out a target calorie intake for weight loss. So there's a million different online calculators that you can punch your body weight into, punch in your height, your gender, and your weight, and it will spit you out a number that is called basal metabolic rate, which basically means the amount of calories you burn laying in bed all day. Now, those calculators are only a starting point and estimate. That's all. Do not take those as absolute factually read, because it's just impossible for it to be that accurate. Take it as a starting point. So after you've got your BMR, you then basically you multiply that by what we often call kind of an activity factor, which basically means how active are you on a daily basis that does not include exercise. Okay, and this is what I always do with all my clients: separate the how many calories we think we burn from exercise from how many calories we burn from just being a human, right, and walking around doing our lives. So let's say my BMR is 1,500 calories. If I am very, very inactive, you multiply that by, say, 1.1 or 1.2 for somebody who's very inactive. So that is somebody, let's say, who drives to work, gets up, drives to work, sits all day, drives home, sits on the sofa, goes to bed. Super inactive. You know, daily step count of under 2,000. Okay, that would be a 1.1 or 1.2. And then it steps up to about 1.7 for somebody who's super active. So that's somebody walking all day, maybe doing a trade, so they're a builder, you know, they're walking, lifting, shifting, carrying all day. Maybe they deliver post. Like I once had a client who was delivered post, and she would walk for like about 15 miles a day, right? Super active. So yeah, that goes up to 1.7. Really, for most people, we fall somewhere in that slightly active category. So it's like around 1.3. So you take that BMR and you multiply it by 1.3. And then that gives you a rough estimate on your maintenance level, aside from exercise energy expenditure. And this is the big issue that I think people run into when they try to estimate their calories for weight loss. We overestimate how many calories we burn through exercise, massively. Because really, for the most part, exercise kind of sucks at burning calories. It's pretty hard. Unless, the caveat on that is unless we are basically an athlete. And if you're an athlete, you can burn tons of calories. But most of the time, if you're an athlete, you don't need to lose weight. So it doesn't matter. And that's the irony with weight loss, or with exercise and weight loss. Most of the time, when we get to the point that we can burn enough calories to make a difference in terms of our weight loss, we don't need to lose weight anymore. So totally forget most of the time, unless you're doing tons of activity, about the calories you burn through exercise. Now, if you are that person who's like, right, I was in the gym for 2 hours, and then I went to a spin class, and then I went to another spin class, and then I jogged home, right, yes, consider your calorie expenditure through exercise there. But for most people, if it's like, yeah, I go to the gym a couple of days a week, I do some lifting, how much difference does it make? Maybe if you're lucky, you get 200 calorie expenditure in that hour. It's just not massive to consider. Really, getting a figure on your BMR and then a physical daily activity level that is accurate to you as an individual, right, is the most important thing. And if err on the low side with physical activity levels, don't err on the high side. That's what everybody does. It's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely super active. No.
It just doesn't disservice to you.
Yeah, totally. And it's even like me, like I know that a lot of my job now, for me as an example, is office-based. And I sit in this chair and write presentations and talk to clients and do all that stuff. I'm not super active, even though I will exercise a large amount because I enjoy it on a weekly basis. But the mistake could easily be me going, oh yeah, I'm super active because I do loads of exercise. No, I'm not. I'm sedentary a lot of the time, and then I do exercise. Two different things.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people get it wrong as far as choosing how active they are during the day based on.
Yeah.
And I think that's been like a huge war on, or at least it was back in the day, on MyFitnessPal and the forums, is whether or not you eat back your exercise calories. Because some people said no, and some people said yes, and it was just like, unless you're an athlete, no.
It's absolute madness. People entering like, oh, I did this amount of, I don't know, cycling, stick it into MyFitnessPal, and then it suddenly goes, hey, have another 400 calories. And it's like, oh no, like that is so, there's so many stages of that is hideously inaccurate that it just becomes an absolute mess trying to do it. Yeah. And then basically, for the most part, after you've got that daily, rough daily expenditure, consistently getting under that level accurately in a way at a speed of kind of a rate of weight loss that helps your motivation is then when you set your calories. So if you are motivated by, you know what, ½ a pound to a pound a week of weight loss, and that's great, and that keeps you motivated, being a little bit, 500 calories or so, under that target that you've come up with is a great place to be. However, if that kills your motivation and you can adhere to going more underneath it, do that. That's where I think, that's where like I start with clients in terms of setting their actual weight loss calorie targets at. It's like, what rate of weight loss will help you feel motivated? That's the thing. And can you actually stick to?
Within a safe limit for a lot of people, because I think it's important to bring up those calculators get more inaccurate. I don't know if you already said this. The larger a person you are, the more inaccurate those are, and taking into account, like we talked about, food relationships, and if you have, you know, eating disorders and things like that, just things that you know that you do, that's going to affect your motivation as well. Which
Yeah.
is cool to go
So
down.
many rabbit holes.
Yeah, but throwing it in is a
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess I know we need to finish, but just to wrap up on that point around numbers, like numbers, for so many of us, we can become so number focused. Points, calories, macros, I don't know, whatever else people count. And we miss the forest for the trees almost. And it's going back to what we were talking about before, it's our relationship with food. To manipulate those calories, that's the most important thing. Because yes, calories are useful, but there are so many inaccuracies along that journey of working out your calories that it's not useless. Of course not. It can be brilliant, but a lot of the time, not being a slave to those numbers is important. Because like you say, I know we've talked about this in the past, those calculators, there's different equations to use. There's a million different equations that all spit out slightly different ones. There's some ones that stay more kind of, God, this is complicated, but mathematically stable with an increasing body weight, and some that don't. I just did a part of my work for LTB on that. And yeah, not being a slave to any form of number is really important, whether that is calories, points, carbohydrate numbers, fat numbers, doesn't matter, is yeah, one of the most important things.
I'm glad you called that out. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
doing
We're going to
this.
wrap up here, but we really, really, really appreciate you coming and speaking with us and spending this time with us today. And I know I'm going to go watch it again multiple times. I love listening to your experience.
Well, if there's other questions that we didn't hit on, I'd be more than happy to come back at some point and like ramble some more about them.
We would love
Sure.
to have you back. So thank you. Yeah.
All right, pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll see you again.
Bye.
See you later, everybody.